Sam Iwowo, Dr. Samantha Iwowo.
Sam, don't stop.
Sorry?
Sam Iwowo.
You prefer Sam. Okay. We'll keep it to Sam. Are you comfortable? Do you have enough space?
Yes, I am.
Are you sure?
I'm trying. Yeah, no, it's all right.
I can move the table over if you need
it's
to.
Fine. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine, yeah.
Okay. So how are you?
Very well. Lovely to be here.
Good.
And thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here.
On this
You're
hot
one of my
seat.
favourite people.
Yeah.
So yeah, this podcast generally is talking to people around the university about their research, partly as a way for me to, I suppose, enlighten myself, because it's alien to me, that world, a little bit.
It's alien to all of us, I think.
Is it really?
I do think so. I think for everybody, it's about a new discovery, isn't it? It's about finding that new thing that at the point of your search for it, you know little or nothing about it. You have a hunch, maybe, and then you follow the trail, so to say. Yeah.
So when you begin research, you're always a little bit in the dark, is what you're saying?
Yes. You're always a little. I'm always a little bit in the dark, or I'm seeking. Yeah, I'm always a little bit in the dark. I'm seeking a new understanding of a dimension of what I know to some degree, and for the purposes of at times comparing what I knew before I came into the research with what I discover upon undertaking it. For instance, with Paintbrush, the film, I went in with some knowledge of what the knife crime menace is like in the UK, with some idea of it, but the granular details of it I didn't know some of the granular details of it I didn't know until I embarked on the research.
So yeah. Paintbrush is a short film you recently
produced. It is a short film.
Produced, directed, and wrote?
No, wrote and directed.
Wrote and directed.
And executive produced. Okay. Yeah, Annie East and Pat Michaels, so they are two other producers. And we've had help along the way, a lot of help. And then in collaboration, of course, with students and alumni of BU.
So what did the research entail when you say you knew a little bit beforehand? How did you go about, what were your first steps into finding out more?
Generally conversations, semi-structured conversations, interviews, if you like, with people from the demographics of my research, of my subject matter area, interest rather. So I had I had interviews or rather conversations with some parents, some social workers, and against the backdrop of what they said, there were existing materials upon which with which to compare them, or to which to compare them, and study what the gaps might be and opportunities for extending the conversation or making an intervention in the conversation. And that was how we then proceeded to the writing of Paintbrush.
Right, I see. Yeah. So is Paintbrush the final output, or do you write something alongside that as well as a written output?
Paintbrush is one of the outputs and one of the steps to further output. So the first step was the research, was the data collection. Excuse me, in terms of the interviews and the conversations with stakeholders. The second step was the writing of the screenplay. Third step was the filming of the screenplay. Fourth step is the editing. And what we find along the lines of practice research is the reshaping of the story based on the realities we came upon as we developed the story and how we had to mediate those challenges to get to where we want to get to. So this has entailed the writing of the script twice. So in other words, we went into production with the final draft, with the final script, the shooting script. And then upon completion, we've had to reshape certain things along the lines of how much were we able to film with the limitations of budget, right? And how much has COVID impacted on the narrative? And how much have collaborations across board impacted on where we want to go with the story.
When you say how much COVID has affected the narrative, do you mean the narrative of making the film or the narrative in the film itself?
The narrative of making the film.
Yeah, of course. The meta-narrative.
Absolutely. Yeah, when we had to down tools for about a year.
Oh, crikey.
Pick it up and go, okay, at the point we were filming this, we had this thought going on, but events appear to have overtaken this thought. And realities like access to certain filming locations are no longer available. And so we had to redirect, we had to reshape the locations. For instance, we filmed in London in 2019. For the pickup scenes that we were thinking to film in London, we had to redirect and film in my garage in Bournemouth. So some of the things that COVID, the realities of COVID brought upon us, and there were limitations to collaborations we could do with students at the time. Of course, they're learning on the job, and at some point we had to bring in industry expertise for editing.
Yes.
So and that has informed to some degree some elements of the narrative as well, things to cut out, which you hadn't thought about before until the expert in editing came in.
I mean, editing is a big thing in film, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, they say that's the final rewrite of the script, don't they? Often the edits. So
absolutely.
I think it's a really important part.
And when you write a transnational screenplay, excuse me, when you write a transnational screenplay, there are aspects to it that need some decoding. There are some cultural aspects to it, cultures that are familiar to you, the filmmaker, that might not be familiar to the editor, for instance, which you have to then decode for them to be able to access. And that also creates the necessity of rewriting some aspects of the screenplay.
I see. Because your screenplay was written in multiple languages, is that what you're saying? Or what?
Yes, with a little bit of the Igbo language, in a little bit of the Igbo language, in a little bit of the Yoruba language, but predominantly in English.
I see.
Yeah, and the editor is Brazilian.
Was it Vitor by any
yes,
chance?
Vitor.
I like Vitor, yeah. I'd have to chat to him at some point on here as well. Can ask him about his experiences.
Absolutely. So you see, then we had to decode. We've had to decode some of the aspects of the script.
In terms of like cultural understanding of the script, is that what you mean?
Cultural understanding,
right.
Nuances of some dialogues, nuances of some songs. You know, so that when he's cutting, he knows what he's cutting and merging together. But those are the beauties of transnational productions, I think.
Right. And collaborating with people.
And of course, collaborating.
Did you always want to make films? Or what was your entry point into this world of research and practical kind of research like this? Was it from the academic perspective, or was it from the filmmaking perspective, or was it just...
It was from the filmmaking perspective. I was first a filmmaker. After my master's project, after my master's course, I dabbled into filmmaking because I had developed some of the interest in that in the course of my master's degree, and went for a diploma in film directing. And afterwards, I thought to myself, I might as well go for another master's in filmmaking, film directing. And my sister suggested, why go for another master's when you can go for a doctoral study? Why waste money, so to say?
Right.
Yeah. But I wasn't quite prepared for the enormity of that decision at the time.
I was going to say, how do you feel about your sister now that she, after all that you've been through in getting your doctorate?
Because after the piece of advice, she might have forgotten she told me about that until I said, hey, I think I'm about to write a proposal. And she goes, oh, go for it. But that was it. I was on my own afterwards.
Oh, right.
As it is with a doctoral study. It's a very lonely road, isn't it?
I can imagine, yeah. I mean, I only started and then dropped
yeah.
quickly. Partly because I have 2 young children. It's just a lot at the moment.
But you'll pick it up again, of course.
Maybe.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I think with a good supervisor, you get to the end. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I got
to blame your supervisor if you don't, is that what
yeah,
you mean?
well, to some degree yourself as well. Yeah, but if you have a good supervisor, it's I think 60% of the burden is shared. Because they kind of like support you through it. On that really lonely road. Yeah. And help you see the end the feasibility of the end which you are seeking to reach.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, when you start, like you say, is muddy waters, or just is it a pin light in the distance? Is there light at the end of the tunnel, or not at all when you start?
I think at the start point of it, I didn't see any light. I didn't see the end. I didn't see any light at all anywhere.
Really? Is that daunting?
It was quite daunting.
Wow.
But soon enough, it began to make sense, little by little.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And I must say, I'm happy I did it, because it helped me understand not only the field of study of my interest even more, but it helped me understand myself even more. Yeah. And how I relate to that space of my research as a post-colonial scholar, for instance, because my film is situated in post-colonial scholarship. So my understanding of the space and the nuances of colonial legacies and the nuances of being a subject of a national of an erstwhile colonized space, how I perceived it prior to the research and how I perceive it now, there is a vast difference, and there's been a journey to that realization. So yeah, it helps with self-discovery as well as the discovery of new knowledge, in my experience.
What exactly do you mean by post-colonialism? I probably should know, but
it's a study of it's a body of critique that interrogates the colonial venture, the venture of colonialism, in areas of its governmentality, in areas of its economics, in areas of history and culture, as well as the legacies of all of these, and the extent to which they might still exist and shape the conscious stroke unconscious of the erstwhile colonized spaces. Yeah, that
right.
sort of interrogation.
I see.
Yeah.
And I mean, you travelled around a lot in your life, haven't you? I had a brief look on Google. I typed in Sam Iwowo, and it came up with all the different places you studied and taught and worked. I
would say the most place I have traveled around is the UK. You'll be surprised. Yeah. Because a large chunk of my education has been in the UK.
Right.
But yes, I have had opportunities to teach in South Africa, as well as of course in Nigeria, where I come from, and most recently in the US. But those have been each of them have been guest lectures.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, it's been fun.
But I mean, that all those experiences must kind of like somehow play a part in the shaping of you, and therefore then your research and your films as well. Yes, and your world sort of viewpoint and your perspectives.
Yes, they educate me. I see it as a window of education for self. Yeah, I go to learn. I go to teach, and I go to learn. Because if we, which is the approach I'd like to do. I like to take on. I do believe that whether it is a lecture or a seminar or a workshop, one element that is often helpful to my teaching is making it a give and take. So rather than lectures being one which I sit at one end and throw everything out at the listener, I invite them to be part of it. So it's always a semi-structured kind of lecture. And in that exchange, I learn a lot from those I'm going to teach, in quote. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I enjoy it. I enjoy that.
Is it always successful when you try and do that?
Most times, yes.
Right.
Yeah, there are times when one might get carried away by an ongoing comment, a comment or a debate or a conversation that's opened up from the initial point of the give and take.
Yeah.
And it might or might not eat into the time for the lecture. But ultimately, we both benefit, I do think.
Absolutely, yeah. I was having conversations with Adrian at this sort of thing the other day, actually. How when I first started teaching him, I didn't know very much about what I teach, like the technical stuff. I know that sounds bizarre.
Okay.
I knew enough to scrape by, right?
Mm-hmm,
right.
Mm-hmm.
So it meant that actually I spent less time talking and more time getting them to talk. And slowly, as I've become, and I've only been doing this for like 4 years now.
Yeah.
I'm starting to talk more, which I'm begrudging myself for, because I think you're cramming too much in and you're not letting them lead the session. and all that sort of stuff. So that's something I'm working on myself, is like keeping that conversation
fluid,
making sure the content is coming from the class more than it is from me. It's too tempting once you feel like you know a subject. I've got so much stuff to teach
tell
you.
you
Yeah.
about, to teach you about,
But
so true.
like you say, I agree with you. I think you need to try and sit on your hands and keep your mouth zipped a little bit at times. Like if you know too much as a teacher, maybe.
I agree with that, and I also see your point, and I go with it as well. I think there are times. I think it keeps shifting, doesn't it? There are times where the student really wants to hear a lot from you if it's an area they're unfamiliar with, or it's an area where they're not very interested in. So in which case, I think it helps me to first of all do much of the talking, and when as they begin to familiarize themselves with it, then the conversations begin. Yeah, so I do like your style as well.
Oh, it's lovely that you're conscious of that as well. You're always thinking of a way to make sure that they can join in. I think that's really nice.
Because otherwise, some might, and in the past I've had a feedback or two coming in saying they felt like they had been put on the spot, but that was not the intention. Yeah, so what I took away from that feedback was, in a situation, I gauge the class, and the level of familiarity with the subject matter. And if they're not familiar with it, get them to the point of some familiarity with contexts that are part of their everyday, or part of topical subject matters. And then it opens up the class, and everybody wants to say so, or most people want to say something. Yeah.
Do you think that takes quite a lot of nerve as an educator to feel comfortable enough to judge your class and not have a complete solid structure in mind?
I think it depends on how you approach it. When you approach it from the perspective, when I approach it from the perspective of a skills audit, for instance, at the start of the class, what are your strengths? What are your interests? What are areas you think you want to advance your skills in? What are areas you're really good in? And how do you want to advance those skills, for instance? It gives me a sense of what the person might be lacking in. Yeah, there are nuances of that shine through that data. And so without putting the person on the spot, without having that rigid approach to, oh, they know this, they don't know that, you design a fluid structure that allows for confidence building, confidence reinforcement, and an enjoyable class session, I think.
And you teach obviously directing, Masters.
I teach directing on the master, and I teach directing on the undergrad course as well.
Oh, you do? Okay. And do you teach any script writing? Because of course you're a script writer.
No, I don't teach any script writing, but there is as you know, an inextricable link between the writing and the directing.
So I mean, all the elements of filmmaking link, to be honest.
Absolutely.
I mean, I struggle for my own thing in teaching camera, for example, without lighting, because I mean, the only thing you're capturing in the camera is light. Yeah. You need to understand something to do with lighting if you want to get a good image.
Absolutely.
So I think it all ties in together, and it's very hard. And the same with editing as well. I teach. You need to understand how it's going to be edited if you're going to shoot well, and all this stuff. So of
course, quite inextricably linked. Yeah. So by extension, we very often refer to screenwriting and the elements of it, like the plot pace, which is very important to the director. Yeah. So we can't teach one without the other, I find.
Yes. You end up teaching everything to do with film because it all links. So you've made quite a few films, haven't you?
I've made 4 films with Paintbrush. I think that would be the 5th. Yeah. That
sounds about right from my research.
I remember the first one was the very first one was After the I Do's. Yeah, it's a romance drama about it's a feminist romance drama about patriarchy in a Nigerian setting, and how 4 women mediate the challenges of that. Yeah, and where it leads each of them to. So that was my directorial debut. And afterwards was, I can't remember now. I need to think. Afterwards was an advertisement on Ebola.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And right after that was were two documentaries on Help a Hero. It was in collaboration with a PR company here in the UK, which was making interventions in hinter parts of Nigeria to empower women, otherwise minoritized, economically minoritized women in the hinterlands of southern Nigeria. So I had two documentaries with them. And on the heels of that came, as part of my doctoral study, Go Get Milk, a short film. And that's what we have extended to Paintbrush, because Go Get Milk was 4 minutes. It's 4 minutes.
I see.
And then we extended it to Paintbrush, which threatens to be 45 minutes.
Threatens. And Go Get Milk is titled because they just went out to get milk.
And you know what could happen.
No spoiler alerts.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not always easy to just go get milk when you're in certain neighborhoods and you're of a certain age and you've encountered certain sort of peer challenges.
Yeah.
So if your mom says go get milk, it's no longer an easy chore.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds like most of your films are fairly exploring fairly hard-hitting topics and somehow trying to explore social issues.
Yes.
What draws you towards that?
I think the topic draws me in, and the people and the potential demographics of the people who are involved in those topics tend to interest me, and sometimes worry about where it might all lead if interventions are not constantly made. Either it's from the arts or it's from the government or other social or elements or other elements of its social justice structures, and that informs me to join the debate, for the possibilities of contributing to the opening of an insight hitherto unexplored or hitherto attended to, so that with a knife crime situation, part of the interest for our team have always been the risks that very often it's the male teen that form the fulcrum of news reportage in terms of being the victimizers and by extension being victims as well. But one of the questions we ask with our research is, what if we see it in the context of a woman, of a young girl, of a teenage girl? What possibilities? What are the potentials of such a reality? You know, and that took us into the exploration of the storyline centered on a teenage girl.
And it's based off of conversations you've actually had with parents and people in the
absolutely
society.
Specifically in the Nigerian diasporic community. We haven't gone in there saying that it happens most in the Nigerian communities. Research has shown that it's not racial. It's a crime of teens, of disadvantaged. It's a crime that happens in communities. It's a crime that happens. I'm picking my words carefully. It's a crime that happens that concern teenagers who are minoritized from different racial backgrounds. You know, but you write. Maya Angelou says you should write about what you know. Yeah. And I'm familiar with my community, my diasporic community in the UK, specifically in London. And so I thought, why not start the conversation from the place I know?
Nice.
Yeah.
And how many films have you written, screenplayed?
I've screenwritten. Yeah.
How do I say that? Screenwritten.
Yeah, I've screenwritten 70. And
70?
Yeah, and out of them,
Wow.
51 have been published. By published, I mean commissioned in one way or the other. Now, very often people go, "Oh my goodness, 51." Yeah, but in those 51s, in that 51, in that number, I count the shorts, and I count the drama series. Yeah,
Yeah, this is still amazing for me. So
yeah. And
it's still an amazing feat, of amazing body of work to have written that much.
And it's a combination of several lengths of stories.
Yes, okay,
Yeah.
right. I mean, I watched Oloi. Have I pronounced that correctly?
Yes, you have.
Yeah,
Actually.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's very good, very good.
Oh.
Some very hard hitting scenes in that.
Yeah.
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 Again, I don't want to give spoiler alerts. I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, and again, a really like important subject matter again.
Thank you.
Is this is that close to where you grew up?
No, but some of my ancestry is situated in the Niger Delta.
Yeah.
I come from the Delta part of Nigeria,
Okay.
and it's the oil producing, it's the goose that lays the golden egg, so to say. And since the discovery of oil in the early 1950s, that area has been has known no environmental peace. So the goods are always extracted from its grounds, but nothing is given back to it nothing is significantly given back to it by way of that is in comparison to what it gives to the whole nation. And in addition to that, it is left with opportunistic diseases that come from the spillages. And this has been going on for over 50 years. Yeah. So while I can't say I grew up there and have a first-hand daily experience of it, I'm well aware of the pains that are alive there. And so when I was invited by Roger Sofima, the producer, to be part of it, it was for me not just an opportunity to write the story for what I suspected would be an important production, because Roger Sofima is quite known in the Nigerian film industry, but I thought it was an opportunity to make an intervention in this long-standing conversation about oil exploitation and exploitative exploration of oil in the Niger Delta. Yeah.
And it seems as though it disrupts the community a lot there as well.
It does, from the air they breathe to the waters that surround them, because they're riverine areas, and they are fishermen predominantly, but they can't fish because it's been ruined by rings of oil spillage, which the government year upon year, in connivance with deliberately or indeliberately with the multinationals, refuse to address.
Wow. Or
pay lip service to the addressing of. And then you have the gas flares that go on day and night, year upon year.
What's this?
The gas flares. So you have the open gas flares from the processing of the oil.
Right, so where the gas is set on fire or whatever. I mean, I don't know the process well enough.
Absolutely, and it's been flaring for about non-stop for conservatively speaking, for about 40 years. Conservatively speaking, day and night.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I don't understand exactly why that happens. What is that? What is that process? What is that doing that? Sorry to go off on a bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Yeah, it's a part of oil exploration.
I see. So this is gases being released.
It's gases being released.
Do they set them on fire intentionally, or is this something that just happens?
It has to be wasted because our government insists that it doesn't know what to do with the gas. Whereas in the West, I think gas is quite an expensive commodity resource, isn't it?
Well, at the moment, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, so it could be used.
Of course, it
can
be used.
They just
yeah.
waste it.
Yeah, upon the insistence that they don't know what to do with it.
Wow. Crikey.
Yeah. Interesting.
So on the topic of Nigeria, I mean, what was it like growing up there, and how long were you there until you moved away?
I was there till well into my late 20s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was beautiful growing up in Nigeria. I think more than anything else, what I appreciated from it is the communal nature of existence, where a child has several mothers, so to say, including your neighbors downstairs. And So you could come back from school, and if your mom is not home at the moment, you could have lunch downstairs before mom comes home and takes you upstairs.
And that wouldn't necessarily be an arranged thing. That would just happen because you were there and someone.
Yeah.
It's just
because
that's the sense of it.
It's just the sense of it. They from what I saw, there were really no occasions of, oh yeah, my kids are coming, could you give them lunch? No, neither would it be said to my mom, my kids are coming when I'll be home. My kids return home when I'll not be home. Could you give them lunch? It was understood that was what was supposed to be.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And I've often wondered if I was born in the wrong either time or country, because that sounds amazing to me. Like, I think there's a certain level of paranoia and distrust in this country. I don't know how broadly I can really say that, but it's parents are scared to let their children go too far.
In recent times in Nigeria, that's becoming the case because of the increased cases of kidnappings and terrorism. But growing up, that was our normal. You didn't have to be accompanied to school, and your school could be 7 streets away or 10 miles away from home.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, and there was no fear that you'd be kidnapped on your way to or from school. Yeah, so those are some of the fun memories I have about growing up in Nigeria, and of course, spending Christmas and spending holidays in the village where you have the dew-soaked mornings. Yeah, and you're so close to the culture of your grandparents. You don't quite appreciate what they are. For instance, the New Yam festivals that happen in sometime in August. That one doesn't realize how beautiful these things are, how precious they are until you're far away from it. Yeah. And you have to take.
You don't know what you've got till it's gone.
You don't know what you've got until you're really far away from it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So such were the experiences, and then the university days were also memorable, but occasionally pulsated by strikes. So when I see the strikes happening here in the UK, sometimes I can relate with the students. Yeah.
Oh, with the students or with the
yeah, of course,
academics
as well as I'm an academic, so I feel it. But in addition to feeling it, I can also relate with the students. Yeah.
Right. And what about your sort of family life? You said you've mentioned your sister earlier.
Yeah.
Is she in academia, by the way?
Yeah, she is.
Okay.
her area is in post-colonialism, but leadership development.
Oh, fabulous.
Studies, yeah.
So you two must be close then, that you're studying similar things. And...
When we're not debating.
Okay.
Yes. And then I have an immediate older sister. She's a geologist. But
wow.
But she's quite quiet and okay. The firebrands are my sister and maybe me.
What a talented family, though.
Oh, we try. We like to threaten that we try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your mother and father, are they?
Oh, they're no longer with us.
Okay.
Yeah, but I have other siblings, though. I have several siblings.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, yeah. I think we're 8 in number.
Really?
Yeah.
And you all grew up together in Nigeria?
Not quite. It's quite intergenerational. My oldest sister is in the US, and then my brother is in Bromley, London, and I have some other siblings in the UK as well.
Wow. So, hang on, where are you in relation to the age of all your siblings? Are you?
You want to know that, so that would be an additional one with which you tease me, right?
Are you the baby? Are you the baby of the family? Are you the youngest?
I thought it was going to be a really good one.
I'm the baby of my family.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Are you the baby of your family?
Yeah, but there's only 3 of us. Two older sisters.
Yeah, I'm the baby of my family.
You are? Oh,
yeah.
There we go. We have that in common then.
So, yeah, that's true. That's true, indeed.
Oh, dear. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this, actually.
Are you?
No,
have you just suddenly relaxed?
Yeah, I'm settling into it. It's fun.
How far into it are we? Maybe
it's
40
fun.
minutes.
It's fun.
Yeah, we're 34 minutes in and now you've relaxed.
Okay,
right?
It's fun.
Oh dear. So how does it compare? You've studied, you said, around the UK, but you've also studied abroad, haven't you?
I studied in Nigeria, of
Yes.
course, yeah, and then came to the UK, University of West London. Then it was Thames Valley University, where I studied.
What, sorry?
It was Thames Valley University.
Oh, Thames Valley.
Yeah, in South Ealing. Yeah, where I studied corporate communications and brand strategy. Yeah, and then I went to Bristol for cinema, for a doctoral in cinema, and then I taught a little at Solent.
Yes.
Yeah, and then came here and met Tom.
Sorry about that. And teased me about my knee.
Oh no! I thought you had forgiven me for that. What punishment I face today.
I don't know if I need to explain what that is in case anyone watches this.
No, please don't.
It's all in good humour. Yeah. I tore my ACL and then I was in cast for a while, and every time now Sam asks me how's my knee, even though it was 2 or 3 years ago.
It was
fully
kindness.
Recovered. Actually, it's not fully recovered, to be honest. It's still a bit dodgy.
It was kindness, you see. How's your knee, Tom?
Yes, I know. It was lovely.
Yeah. Where are your crutches, Tom?
No, and I feel we've bonded over that as well.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Yeah. And Honey JD, I need to get you some of that for Christmas.
Oh, yes. No, I'm going to beat you to that, for sure. For sure. I wanted to shock you today. For some reason, I omitted that, but I'll surprise you before you do.
So what's coming up next for you? Is Paintbrush finished?
Paintbrush is in its final stages. We're 90% done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the
That's
final.
That's what you think.
That's what I think. But I think now I can see the end of the road.
Okay.
Yeah. Annie East, deputy head of department, is on board as she's one of the producers.
Who's that?
Annie East.
Oh, Annie East. Yes.
And so she's got, when structure is part of research, is part of production. It's really cool. When you're coming at it from a director's point of view.
Right.
There sometimes is a laid-back approach to when you complete it, but when it's on the timeline, on the producer's timeline, then you got to work towards
deadlines.
That. Yeah,
and
to
keeps
deadlines.
It ticking along.
Absolutely. So that's what we're working towards now, and the aim is to get it completed by April.
Fab.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it does its tourings, and we go on to something different. There's something else actually. We're working on with students, and that's as part of Roger, because Roger's a filmmaker whom I mentioned, the producer from Nollywood, who is a fellow here with us. Nollywood, sorry, nice. Yeah, who's a producer here, who's on a fellowship here with us.
Okay,
is developing, or we're co-developing a drama series titled A Sparrow Song.
A Sparrow Song.
Sparrow Song. It's a drama series.
Nice.
And we're working with students and a few alumni from Bournemouth University. Yeah, so that's the next project. But I'm not heavy lifting it as I am currently heavy lifting Paintbrush. So that's some relief. Yeah, but looking forward to that one.
Fab. Me too.
Yeah.
What does filmmaking how does filmmaking compare? UK to Nigeria? The processes, the structures. I think health and safety for some reason is in my mind. I don't know.
Yeah,
if I'm stereotyping there, but go on.
In truth, I think the bottlenecks of production management, which obtains here, are what could be considered as the bottlenecks of it. Risk assessment, in some situations, police permissions, local council permissions, and simulations of certain things you cannot do. For instance, the recreation of crime and the stringent rules around such recreations are not typical to filming in the Nollywood setting. Yes, you do require local government permits. Yes, it is wise to pre-visualize your productions, but it is not along the lines of a potential punitive response if you fail to. So people would pre-visualize because it is useful to the production to do so. Not so much doing it for the purposes of not running foul of the law, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So yes, those are some of the differences, and of course there is a cultural difference, and then there is the documentation, which I find really helpful in the UK setting that doesn't quite apply in the Nollywood setting. people tend to go off memory a whole lot along the lines of scheduling of productions.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Even for scheduling, it's off memory.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. To some degrees.
Yeah, right.
And what it does is that it makes productions go quite quicker.
In the UK?
In Nigeria.
Oh, Nigeria. Okay.
Yeah, it makes it go quite quicker, and it's while retaining some fluidity. So we can't start at 1. Yes, we do need to start at 1 p.m. But if there is traffic, which we are wont to have in Lagos, for instance, if you're filming in Lagos, people are forgiven to some degree if a cast member or a crew member arrives later than 1 o'clock, which is the shoot time, for instance. So we have some of that flexibility. It is not encouraged, but it is not. One doesn't, unless it's a habit, get berated for it. It's understood that it could happen.
It's a little bit more laid back.
Laid back and not, because we finish productions quite quicker. The turnaround is quite quicker. So these are the complexities in difference. These are some of the fascinating differences. So it's quite, on the outside it could appear to be laid back, but it's quick turnaround. Helps one see that it is not as laid back as we think it would be.
Right.
So that whereas a feature-length filmmaking process here could take, conservatively speaking, 1 month to film, on a shoestring budget. In Nigeria, it could typically take a week to film.
Really?
Yeah.
A feature-length?
A feature-length film, yeah. So even with all that
that's like 90 minutes roughly of
so even with that seemingly laid back approach, a lot is achieved.
I see.
Yeah, quite quickly.
Does that make you begrudge working in films in this country at all?
No, not at all, actually, because while the focus in the Nigerian setting is the story you tell and the power of its themes, in my experience of filmmaking here, it's not only those, but the mise en scene as well. The
visuals.
In Nigeria, we're not as concerned with the mise en scene as there is the concern with that over here.
Right.
So, I appreciate the beauties of both worlds. Yeah.
I did wonder, as when you were saying, feature film here takes maybe 4 times longer to shoot. Whether that was the reason, because people are being very particular about
I think so.
Mise en scène.
I think so.
Lighting, tweaking things, and
pre-visualizing in depth.
Right.
Yeah, going through the fine-tooth comb, because you're painting pictures frame by frame. Yeah.
Do you find that that is a does that help you be more creative, or does it do the opposite? Does it make you feel a little bit restrained?
Rephrase the question, please, in terms of
when things are taking so long and people are going through things with a fine-tooth comb, as you say. Does that help you have a sense as a director now?
I think it makes me. I think it helps me. It helps me trust the process more.
Okay.
But it's contextual. It depends. It depends on several things. If the person is time taken because they are not effective in the role, it could be frustrating.
Yeah.
But if one is taking time because it's a complex scene, or there are complex scenes, and you really need to seed the elements of the story in visuals, yes, I appreciate it. It's a learning process. Yeah.
And then I suppose you trust that they are putting their all into it because they're trying to make it as good as they possibly can.
And you see that at the end of each working session, whether or not that's the case, or if the person is just a time waster. So it's always contextual for me. Yeah, but I think that I agree that a good thing takes time, particularly when it's pictures, moving image. Yeah.
Fab. So this Sparrow Song.
Yeah.
What's the themes of this?
Without spoilers.
The broad brushstroke theme. Yeah, don't spoil it at this stage.
I'll try. It's a mixed heritage teenager who's skilled in Afrobeats music and seeking for a break from a music producer who can give her that, but who can also cause her to question her very identity. So it's a coming of age story that borders on identity crisis.
It's set in
Bournemouth.
Bournemouth.
Isn't that interesting?
Wow, that's fab.
Yeah.
And there'll be a lot of Afrobeats music in the film or the series, sorry.
Yes, we're hoping to.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Or we use the show. We do the less is more technique. We don't have to have the songs in there, depending on what the copyrights say. In relation to budget, we don't have to have songs per se in there, but we could have some elements of music. Yeah, less is more, in other words. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to declare, Sam, before we wrap this up?
I'd like to say thank you very much.
No, thank you.
But seriously speaking, I think this is a good thing that you're doing here. Getting people to speak about, because it's not very often you get a chance to speak about what you do in a relaxed environment like this, and get to hear possible questions one might have about your work. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I like that.
No, thank you so much for coming, and thanks for those kind words, because this is really the start of the process. You're only my second guest. That's if I'm including my first, Adrian, which was sort of a tester, but he's also a very good guest. But you're my first. This is getting the ball rolling.
So I'm the second one then.
First or second.
First,
depends because it was sort of a test. But anyway, but no, I'm hoping this sort of leads. I don't know where it's going to lead, frankly. But hopefully it sparks conversation, not between just me and whoever's sat the other side of me, but from all researchers around the university, and helps to kind of give more of a sense of collaboration where people sort of spark ideas from conversations I've had with people. And even if it's not me sat this side, if I'm just setting up a podcast for other people to do, that's what I'm sort of hoping. I don't honestly know where this is going to go at the moment, but fingers crossed it keeps going somewhere.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. Yeah. Great, several possibilities actually. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But Dr. Samantha Iwowo, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Tom.